Koppel and her crew captured the miners' sometimes violent confrontations with strikebreakers, local police, and company thugs. The film is a heartbreaking record of struggle between a community fighting to survive.
I've always been a fan of songs, and I think we should sing more as a movement. I'm a big fan of that. But you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about. Songs and films related to labor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to look at a couple new segments, or one new segment starting today. So we know that organized labor is making a resurgence in this country, but there's no disputing the long, steady decline in unionized American workers over the past several decades. With fewer and fewer folks directly connected to the labor movement and its legacy, it makes cultural representations of the labor movement all the more important in my view. And with that in mind, we have a new segment on the Valley Labor Report where we will be highlighting a labor song and film each month. So yeah, I think this was a great segue to talk about sports and labor, and then transition over into the entertainment sector. I agree with you. I think there's something very powerful about singing together as a movement. You know, if you've never had the opportunity to be in a big room with a bunch of union brothers and sisters and sing Solidarity Forever, for example, that's one of those experiences that you just can't replicate. And, it's something that I think really does lift our spirits and give us that drive to keep going. So starting off with the labor film of the month, I'm going to go with kind of a traditional pick to start us off. I am going to go with Harlan County, USA, directed by Barbara Koppel and released in 1976. No discussion of important labor films or even important American documentaries in general is complete without mention of this film. I'm going to quote from Criterion. Barbara Koppel's Academy Award-winning Harlan County, USA, unflinchingly documents a grueling coal miner strike in a small Kentucky town. With unprecedented access, Koppel and her crew captured the miners' sometimes violent confrontations with strikebreakers, local police, and company thugs. Featuring a haunting soundtrack with legendary country and bluegrass artists Hazel Dickens, Merle Travis, Sarah Gunning, and Florence Reese, the film is a heartbreaking record of the 13-month struggle between a community fighting to survive and a corporation dedicated to the bottom line. I know you're a big fan of this film as well, Jacob. Personally, I couldn't help but make connections to the ongoing UMWA strike in Warrior Met down in Brookwood, which is, as we mentioned earlier, Alabama's longest running strike. I'd seen it years before, but I did watch it within the past year, and really just kind of hit different, having been exposed to this strike down in Brookwood and covered that strike. So there's a lot of parallels there. And I just got to say, I mean, there's a reason it's on every list like this, because there are so many moments and scenes that will resonate. There's the woman Lois who pulls a pistol out of her bra at a meeting. That was a trip.
Yeah.
There's unfortunately, there's a tragic conclusion, and the fatal shooting towards the end is really hard to forget. One of the scenes that stood out to me a lot was when the miners went to New York City to picket. Again, parallels to the current UMWA struggle. And there was this conversation with an NYPD cop on the street. And I don't know the cop's backstory. I don't think we ever learned anything about the cop's backstory, but he certainly seemed like, a blue-collar background, blue-collar kind of guy. And it was really fascinating for me to watch and listen as he was talking with these Kentucky miners and hearing about their struggle. And you could tell how sympathetic he was. And you could tell, like, he was pulling for them. And so you have that contradiction there between his sympathies for their struggle. Once he had the opportunity to see what they were doing, why they were there in New York to picket, and hear from the miners themselves what was happening, his heart went out to him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his colleagues down in Kentucky, the local law enforcement, are on the side of the company, right? And to me, that kind of exemplifies a lot of the contradictions within American culture. So Harlan County, USA has been released by Criterion Collection. Last I checked, it was available to stream on HBO Max. Even if you're someone who normally finds documentaries, a little bit too boring or too dry, I really recommend you give this one a chance. It's as engaging as any work of fiction. And, there's just something about getting to know these folks, these real people and their real struggle. So
yeah,
that's my pick for Film of the Month, Labor Film of the Month, Harlan County, USA.
Yeah, and I don't have much else to say. You said it all. It's a really good film. Highly recommend it. If you're looking for something to watch, definitely check that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to January's Labor Song of the Month, since I went with a pretty standard pick for my movie, I'll mix it up a bit and highlight a pro-labor song I reckon many of you haven't heard. The song is Union Man by the great Neil Young, released on the album Hawks and Doves back in 1980. I should probably admit my bias up front that I am a huge fan of Neil Young. His solo career, his work with all these great bands and musicians like Crosby, Stills and Nash, Buffalo Springfield, Crazy Horse. Rest in peace to the legend, David Crosby. And I was actually writing this segment and picked this song before Crosby passed, and after I heard that news, of course I had to make this the song of the month. So despite Neil being one of my all-time favorite musicians, I actually didn't know he had this song. It's kind of a deep cut, so I wasn't very familiar with it until pretty recently. So shout out to Jack, my father-in-law, a retired UAW member, also a huge Neil Young fan, who turned me on to this song.
Now that's surprising.
I had to hear it. He just knew that.
Well, it's surprising that you hadn't heard it because I had heard it before.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Somehow I missed it. And I've been listening to Neil since I was 15. But somehow I never came across this song until my 30s, I believe. So it's definitely classic Neil Young with a mix of rock and country. It's got a silly side to it. They have like this mock AFM meeting in the middle of the song, with folks making a motion and passing the motion. AFM being the American Federation of Musicians, of course. So Neil is still holding true to his protest of Spotify. You will not find it on there, but you can find it on YouTube, on his official channel, and I'm sure elsewhere. So I really hope you check it out. I would love to play it for you, but then we would inevitably get copyright notices on our video, and YouTube would complicate matters. So I'll leave it for you to check that out, but Neil Young's Union Man. Hope you'll listen to it. It is January's Labor Song of the Month. So if you have any suggestions on labor songs and labor films that you think would make a good film of the month or song of the month, definitely hit us up. Share them in the chat. Send them to us on social media. I always love to discover new films and songs about the labor movement. And you may also just remind me of some that maybe I've forgotten about.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.